We've all been waiting for that next big game, and Titanfall is one of those games for the next generation of gaming. And not just Xbox One, as Titanfall is also on PC and Xbox 360. It keeps things familiar to the average Halo, Battlefield, or Call of Duty player especially, but still manages to feel nothing like any of the three of those games. That's because Titanfall has Titans, and they may seem intimidating at first until you realize the controls are the same while playing as a pilot, aka human in the game, as playing in a Titan. I must add that the maneuverability of the pilots, being able to run up the side of buildings or run along walls or even jump across rooftops, all while watching giant mechs sling metal and explosives everywhere, often has my jaw dropping in excitement, saying Xbox record that and waiting to be able to tell my friends what happened in the game the next day. Now, let's start this review. We'll start off with the campaign, as this game was advertised to include a multiplayer campaign, but in reality is an oversimplistic add-on mode which has no real substance, to be honest. The campaign consists of dialogue logs and different skyboxes, and for example dragons who don't truly affect the game at all. It just feels like extra art and wasted development time which should have been spent on even more multiplayer maps and modes. But I guess that's due to the transition of games into being either multiplayer only or single player only, but that's a whole nother story. That being said, the campaign mode feels tacked on to what is ultimately a multiplayer only title. There's only 9 campaign missions, and they all comprise of is classic multiplayer modes with added videos in a 50 by 50 pixel set in the corner of the screen. When I realized this, I was really let down, as I had higher hopes for a hybrid single player and multiplayer game mode. Now, it seems cool on paper to have a hybrid single-player multiplayer game mode, that not being the case here, of course, because it just feels uninspired in this instance, but is only one of the few faults to an otherwise fantastic game. To finish off, while the campaign lacks in many ways, the added dialogue does seem to add some extra tension to the game, but it can be a distraction because you are listening to an extra voice instead of the player about to shoot you in the face in a still competitive game mode. Obviously, with Titanfall, the whole game is multiplayer, including the so-called campaign, but the classic multiplayer does not have the dialogue and short cutscenes in the corner of the screen during gameplay as campaign mode does, so it allows you to focus on being competitive against your opponents without distraction. So the big differentiator with Titanfall over the other FPS is the fact that there are Titans. While the core shooting mechanics and controls are based on Call of Duty, due to the fact that the people making Titanfall left the Call of Duty developer to form Respawn and make Titanfall in the first place, the game is much more than that. You start a match and are on foot until you realize you can wall jump and wall run up the sides of buildings in a couple seconds, and if that isn't crazy enough, in a minute or two after the start of the match, there is already multiple Titans running around on the map. And when there is 6+ Titans fighting within sight, the game puts you in awe. Then, while not in a Titan as a pilot, you have anti-Titan weapons and can jump on the back of Titans and shoot them up close for maximum damage. And while playing as a pilot, you never feel disadvantaged to the behemoth Titans running around and spraying bullets everywhere. You also have AI characters of multiple varieties, being grunts and specters, to shoot as an added bonus for points while you are not in direct contact with the other players or Titans. So even at desolate parts of the map, you don't ever feel lost. AI in this game is the ability to put your Titan in one of 3 modes: AI mode, guard mode, and follow mode. AI mode is when you drop your Titan and let it do the work. Guard mode does just that, guard you. And follow mode, which has your Titan stick as close to you as possible. This really adds yet another point of depth to an already substantial game overall.
Heavy damage incoming.
If you were wondering about the map count in the game, there's 15 maps out of the box, which is actually well above average for an FPS, but almost expected due to this being an online-only game. The maps are large, but with many close-quarter areas for both pilots and Titans, and with enough small nooks and crannies for the pilots to be able to hide in and pick shots at the Titans from. The maps themselves are varied, and you don't feel like you're fighting in the same location each time, which is very comforting. But while the map side of things is all hunky-dory, there is no private match system to fine-tune your own settings and really get the maps to act differently based on player choice. Since games like Halo 2 set the bar for these kinds of things decades ago, it's a slight knock on Titanfall as being a social piece more than just a video game. Now, as far as game modes go, this is another downfall to the game. There are 5 game modes, which doesn't sound bad until you figure out 3 are very similar. You have Attrition, aka Team Deathmatch, Last Titan Standing, which starts everyone as a Titan with 1 life until all Titans are killed. Hardpoint, which is Team Deathmatch with 3 points on the map that must be captured by standing in a close proximity. Capture a Flag, which is classic CTF with added Titans, and finally Pilot Hunter, which is Attrition except only pilot kills count for points. That's right, there's no free-for-all mode, no multi-team, and nothing that feels like an exclusive game mode to Titanfall. But I'm not sure if that's necessarily a bad thing or not. While having a limited number of game modes is a real bummer, the fact that there's 15 maps packed in the game compensates for that for the most part. And with added DLC, I can see them adding at least a few game modes throughout the game's life. At least I hope so. Now we move on to the loadouts, and while slightly limited compared to other games, it is yet another very balanced piece in the game. You have weapons that act differently without many multiple variety weapons. You have an anti-Titan weapon and a Sci-Fi. So at least you can technically carry 3 weapons at a time, allowing you to have the right weapon for each of 3 situations, which adds some depth. As far as perks go, there are not as many options as could be, but it's still a very solid perk system. You also have burn cards, which add a temporary layer that is an addition to perks. You can choose 3 burn cards before a match, and at the start and in between lives you can select a burn card to use when you respawn. But when you die, that burn card is spent, gone, forever. It doesn't sound like a lot, but while playing such a fast-paced game, it gives you that extra bit that could mean you getting a kill over an opposing player. Another big point in Titanfall is the fact that leveling up and resetting your rank grows to mean much more than, oh, I've played a lot at this game, after leveling the first time, and the game will require specific in-game achievements to be able to reset your rank each consecutive time. At first it sounded like a bummer, but until you realize it is forcing you to get better at using certain weapons to move on to a higher level. So you actually feel like you've achieved something every time you level up. All in all, the game has incredible balance in the Pilot versus Titan gameplay, the weapons, perks, burn cards, and Titan classes. Everything has a pro and a con, and you have to really pick and choose which weapons and abilities in the game fit your playstyle. It makes for a balanced game that anyone of any skill level can play and have the ability to compete with veteran players, at least to some regard. It's definitely fun, flat out, fun times 3. I mean, especially for FPS, it's one of the first games in a while you can't seem to put down and will live on due to a dedicated fan base for many years. While the game has a few cons, there are far and few between, and it is worth every penny of its $59.99 cost. No matter what platform you play this game on, you have to play Titanfall. And I don't remember the last time I told somebody that about a game.
They're unstoppable.
Some of the pros about the game would have to be that it's fun, it's balanced, and it has a large map count. But some of the major cons have to be lack of game modes and no private matches. But if you really wanted to get down into every intricate pro and con, the pros well outweigh the con. And overall, I would have to make that give Titanfall a score of 8.5 out of 10. As always, like, comment, subscribe, and game on, gamers.
Let's go.